So the first palette I have is this Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. And here's what it looks like on the inside. It's pretty dirty. I've used it quite a few times. I don't like this palette. The colors are just a little bit too light for me. They don't really build up too good on the skin. I do actually like this color right here. It's Creme Brulee. But that's about it. Just having one good eyeshadow that I can use out of the palette doesn't make me want to keep this palette. I've had it for a few years and I think I'm going to get rid of it. This Urban Decay Shadow Box palette. Here's what it looks like on the inside. To be honest with you, I don't even know why I bought this palette. None of these colors I would use ever. I don't think I ever have. I think I might have swatched it a few times and then that's about it. So I'm gonna pass this one along. Urban Decay Electric palette. This palette is gorgeous. I really want to incorporate some bright fun colors into my eyeshadow look. For that reason, I think I'm going to keep this around. I think I'm going to try it this spring or summer with some color. So I'm going to keep this Balm palette. And it's the volume 1. The Spotlight, I think is what it's called. I have quite a few of these little mini palettes. I wasn't a fan. Like, I tried to use it. If you have a fair skin tone, you would probably like this palette. The shimmer metallic-y shades just wasn't impressive. I don't know, I just don't like it. So I'm gonna pass this one along too. Beauty Creations 35 Color Pro palette. It's the Emma palette. Here's what it looks like on the inside. I actually really like these Beauty Creation palettes. You have to build them up a little bit, but it's not bad. You get some really good payoff with these shadows. And another thing that I really like about it is that they're fairly pigmented, but they don't kick up much product or much powder at all. I like them. I like the shimmer shade. I'm gonna keep it. This Morphe palette. So it's a 3502 palette. Here's what the 3502 palette looks like. I like this palette. Very pigmented. Shades are really buttery. I love the shimmer shades. I just love everything about this palette, so I'm going to keep it. This Amuse Cosmetic Eye Collection palette. Here is what the palette looks like. It comes with a tiny mirror and a couple of those sponges that we don't use. I tried this palette a few times. I'm really not impressed with the pigmentation and the overall color scheme. I can't get past the smell of the palette. This palette smells like baby powder. I probably will never use it again. For that reason, I'm going to get rid of it. The Lancie 35P palette. And here's what it looks like. I absolutely love this palette. As you can see, I've been digging in it quite a bit. I'm probably never going to get rid of it. It does not have any details on this palette, but I don't care because I love it. The eyeshadows are very pigmented. The colors are just so buttery and smooth. The metallics are absolutely gorgeous. I have this No Name palette from Amazon. When I seen it online, I thought it was really, really pretty. But when I got it, just a little bit too neutral for me. I don't even think I ever used it. I might have swatched it or something, or just looked at it and was like, no, because these colors just, they're boring. It's a boring palette. I just really I don't like it. So I'm going to get rid of it. This palette is near and dear to my heart. This was the first palette I ever purchased. It's a BH Cosmetics 88 color palette. Old school palette where they have a million colors in there and the shadows were just horrible, very powdery and not pigmented at all. And like, what would you do with all these colors if you are not a makeup artist? You just wouldn't use it. And I've tried and I've tried and I've tried to make it work and it just don't. And I've been holding on to it because it was my first ever palette, but I think it's time to get rid of it. So I'm going to, actually I'm going to throw this one out. This Tarte Tease mini palette. Here is what it looks like on the inside. I love this little palette. I use it sometimes as a travel palette. It's so compact and small and the shades are really pretty. You can get some really cute eye looks with this little palette. So I'm going to keep it. I have this Anastasia palette that I created, which is an empty palette, and then you put whatever 4 colors you want to inside the palette. So this shade is Sienna, this shade is Dragonfly, this shade is Truffle Glitter, and this shade is Rose. It's just a 4-pan magnetic palette, and I love it, so I'm going to keep it. This Buxom Customizable Palette. Here is what my customizable palette looks like. It has some really pretty shades. I love this shade as my transition shade. I love this dual chrome blue brown shade. I use this as like an all over shade. I really like it. I really like it. I don't use it as much as I used to, but I need to revisit this palette again, so I'm gonna keep it. Tarte Alert palette, and this is the mini palette. I haven't even pulled it out of the package yet. Here's what it looks like on the inside. It's a really pretty palette, and I haven't even used it yet, so for that reason I'm going to keep it and try to use it. This Fiona Styles palette, the Artist Eyeshadow Quad and Electra. Here is what it looks like. These shadows are absolutely gorgeous and very pigmented. I really like this palette. I got it from Alta when Fiona Styles was going out of Alta, so they had the sale, and I think I got it for like $8. So I love this palette. So pretty. I'm gonna keep it. Too Faced Chocolate Chip palette that I have not even used either. It's just a mini size of the chocolate bar palette. My husband bought it for me. I don't think he realized that I don't like the chocolate bar palette. It's a matte one. I'm going to try it. So that is the goal, to see how it works. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it just to try it. If I don't like it, I'm going to declutter it. So I have the Balm Shady Lady palette. So here's what Shady Lady looks like. I've tried to use this palette. The metallics just don't do it for me. I can't with these colors. I just don't like this palette, so I'm going to pass it along. The palette that I got off of Shop Hush, the Sunset Boulevard Ruby May Cosmetics palette. Here is what the inside of the palette looks like. I like it. I really like this palette. It's very pigmented. Some really pretty warm colors and neutral colors in here. It's just an overall good palette, and so I'm going to keep it. So I have this Makeup Geek palette. It's just a 4-pan palette. It's the Wish palette. Here's what the Wish palette looks like. I really like this palette. This is a very nice everyday palette. My fave, it's Cocoa Bear Dark Rose. So it's just a really pretty everyday palette, so I'm going to keep it. And it's a nice travel palette. Folklore Ever-Changing Eyeshadow Palette. Here's what it looks like on the inside. This palette is absolutely gorgeous. And when I tell you, the eyeshadows are extremely pigmented. The metallic shades go on foiled, and they just look so beautiful on the eyes. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 metallic shades. So I really love this color, that color, and that color. I love this whole palette, period. It's just really pretty. I want to try to use Mystery and Leaves one day. Yeah, it's just an all over good palette, and I think I got it off of Amazon for maybe $9.99. Really good palette. I'm keeping it. Beauty Glaze Sunset Dusk 15 color eyeshadow palette, and here is what it looks like on the inside. I just don't like this palette. The colors aren't pigmented. They aren't pretty on the eyes. They all blend together. Patchy. They're just not good quality at all. I don't like it. I'm gonna get rid of it. The Makeup Revolution Ultra Eye Contour Light and Shade palette. I think I might have used it maybe once or twice. It's supposed to be a dupe for the Kat Von D palette, Shade and Light palette. I really don't like it, so I'm gonna pass this along. Bad Habit Royals palette. This is what that looks like. It's supposed to be a dupe for the Anastasia Modern Renaissance palette. I don't even think I ever used this. I don't know. I think I'm going to keep this as a maybe. Only because I don't quite remember how this palette worked out. So next I have the Bad Habit Aurora palette. I have not even used this palette. That's terrible. Okay, so this is going in the maybe pile as well because I haven't even used it, so I could not tell you how this works. But this palette is gorgeous. What? Oh my god. I need to stop buying stuff and use what the hell I have. I'm going to put this in the maybe pile. Beauty Glaze I Got You edition. This palette is not good. The colors aren't pigmented at all. It's just not a good palette. Like I said with the other one, they don't fade out. They just all blend in together, and they're not pigmented. It's just not a good palette. I'm gonna pass it along. Beauty Creation Tease Me palette. Here is what the Tease Me palette looks like. I like this palette. I have used some of these colors for like transition colors. They're pretty decent, but what I need to do is use these metallic shades like Lust, which seems to be very, very foiled looking. I'm gonna keep this. Misco's Charming Moist eyeshadow palette. I absolutely adore this palette. It's just one of my favorite palettes, one of my favorite eyeshadow formulas. The colors are very creamy, very buttery. They are very, very pigmented. Such a beautiful neutral eyeshadow palette. You can never go wrong. You can use it as an everyday palette. You can use it from day to night. It's a really pretty palette, and for that reason I'm going to keep it. The BH Cosmetics It's My Ray Ray palette is a 21 color palette. You have your contour shades on this side, and then you have all of your eyeshadows on that side. This palette is extremely pigmented. Such a beautiful palette. She did a really, really good job on this palette, as well did BH Cosmetics. Collaborating with her on this palette. I love it. I probably will never get rid of this palette. You can't really tell because I haven't dug in it too much, but when I did, I really liked it. I do not like that contour color on me. It looks too muddy. The highlighter shades are really, really gorgeous. Really pretty, really pretty. Overall good palette. Yeah, I'm keeping it. Of Jacobin Ellie. It's a brand that is sold off of Amazon, and they have some of the best eyeshadow palettes. It has 18 blendable matte and shimmer shades, and it's called the Candy Peaches palette. Isn't that a gorgeous palette? I love their formula. It's an indie brand, but it's a really, really, really good one. So I like it, and I'm going to keep it. I want to keep playing with this palette. Beauty Glaze Impress You palette. Don't like it at all. Don't like it. If you've seen Amazon pick my makeup for today or whatever that video was I did, yeah, you'll know that I absolutely dislike this palette. It sucks so bad. It's not pigmented at all. All the colors bleed together. It seems to be a running thing when it comes to Beauty Glaze. I'm getting rid of this. Moschino. Let me know if I'm pronouncing that wrong, y'all, but I get this palette from Sephora. It says Moschino plus Sephora, and those shades are so pretty. Gorgeous. I love Clay as my transition shade. Kisses is really pretty. This is a really pretty mauvey color called Cloud Crossing. They're very, very pigmented. I like this palette, and I'm going to keep it. A 9-pan Morphe palette, 9C Drill Crew palette. So that is what the palette looks like. These colors are so pretty. So pretty. I love it. They're creamy. They're very, very pigmented and blendable. You can't go wrong with this palette. You can use it as an everyday palette. You can use it as a day to night palette. It's up to you. Really, really pretty palette. I'm going to keep it. Another one of the Balm Shady Lady palettes. This is the Volume 2 palette. Here's what that looks like on the inside. I don't know, the color scheme is not my thing. I don't even know why I bought this. Maybe just because it was the Balm and it was on sale. I don't find it to be a useful palette at all. You have no transition shades, just all shimmer. I have a hard time having palettes that have only shimmers or only metallics in it because I don't like to use shimmer or metallics in my crease because I have hooded eyes. This doesn't look good. Just the color scheme. It's not something I would use on a regular basis, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Lorac Downtown LA Urban Artist Palette. Here is what it looks like. There's nothing LA about this palette. This palette is so meh. What a boring palette. When you think of LA, you don't think of these colors. I think of bright and fun, artistic, and this is not artistic at all. This is very boring. I wasn't impressed when I got this palette in the mail, so I'm going to pass on it. The Bad Habits After Party palette, and here's what that palette looks like on the inside. I like this palette. I do. I've used it quite a few times and I liked the outcome. Sometimes I have to pair it with one transition shade just to warm it up just a tad bit, but not too much. I mean, I don't really have to, but sometimes I do. I just really like it, so I'm going to keep it. So I have another one of the Misco's Charming Moist palettes. All of their palettes are named the same. I don't know why they do that. Here's what that palette looks like on the inside. I really like this palette. I like all of their palettes, actually. I don't even need to explain it. I just love it. I love it for the same reason why I love the last palette. The colors are very pretty. If you compare them all together, and you wouldn't even need other palettes, but since I'm a hoarder, I buy other ones, but I really don't need them because these palettes, these Charming Moist palettes, are perfection. Violet Voss Pro palette. I just got this one. The shades are absolutely gorgeous. I love this palette. I will not be getting rid of it. I have the Tarte Hardiest Pro palette. I love the way these palettes smell. They smell just like cocoa powder or hot chocolate. My second high-end palette I ever bought. I use it so much because I absolutely love this palette. I will not be getting rid of it. It is perfect. I have the Stila Eyes Are the Window eyeshadow palette. And mind, this is my first high-end eyeshadow palette. This is what it looks like on the inside. I love it. It's not creamy, it's not moist or anything like that. It's a very dry formula, but they're very pigmented. They're very, very pigmented, and the colors blend out seamlessly. They don't bleed into each other. You can see the distinction between each color. Although it seems like most companies are going in a different direction with their formula, I don't care. I don't care. I'm still going to keep it. The Balm Appetite palette. I love this palette. It's so cute. Just who comes up with the Balm catchy names? I just would like to know, because this is the cutest palette. Here is what it looks like on the inside. What is it? Eat Your Heart Out. How cute is that? I love this palette. The shades are really, really pretty. They're not super pigmented, but you can get a pretty eye look out of it. I find myself, when I do use this palette, I end up adding a couple other shades with it. Get a nice eye look, but I'm not mad at it. I like this one. I'm on the fence about this palette. I really am, because I like it, but I don't love it. Like, I know I'm not going to use it all the time, so should I keep it if I know I'm not going to use it all the time? I don't know. Like, the sense of humor behind the palette, it's a maybe. So we're going to put it up here with the maybes. Another Balm palette is the La Bamba Volume 2. So here is what La Bamba Volume 2 looks like. You gotta add some other shades to it, which I'm not opposed to doing. I just know I will not use this palette, so I'm going to pass it along. Alta Meadows 12-piece jewel tone eyeshadow palette. Here is what that looks like. I used this palette maybe a couple times. I don't really like it. It's pretty much the same as the Urban Decay palette. Yeah, these just jewel tone palettes just don't speak to me, so yeah, I don't like them and I'm gonna pass them along. I found a knockoff Morphe times Kathleen Lights palette on Amazon. Here's what it looks like. It's a pretty palette to the eye. Like when you're looking at it, it's a really pretty palette. The shadows themselves don't translate on the eyes like they do in the palette. It's just not cute at all. There's no point in keeping it. It's not a good palette. I'm gonna pass it along. Face Candy Wow palette. Here is what it looks like on the inside. I've used this quite a bit. It's gonna be in. I'm really not that impressed with this palette. The colors are very pretty, but they don't translate as pretty if they look in the palette, just like the Kathleen Lights palette. I'm gonna pass this along. Here's another Misco's palette. A mix of warm, bright colors, neutral colors. It's a really, really good palette. I'm gonna keep it. Alta Melissa Michelle. So I have the Alta times Melissa Michelle palette. I love this palette. The colors are so pretty, very pigmented. I actually like this blush too, which I normally can't get away with that kind of blush, but it actually looks pretty on my skin. I don't know. I think she did a fabulous job on this palette. I'm going to keep it. This Oakland Eyeshadow palette. It looks really pretty. I know that I don't like it. I know that the colors don't blend very well. It's just not a good palette, so I'm gonna pass it along. Here's the second Oakland palette. It's just a warm version of the other one. I don't like this one either. The colors are really, really pretty, but they don't look that pretty on the eye, so I'm gonna pass it along. Of the Bad Habit Soulless palette. Here is what the Soulless palette looks like. I actually like the Soulless palette. I wish the actual mattes that are in this palette was mattes. They have like a sheen to them where it's not a complete matte. I don't know. Here, it's a maybe. The Ulta Gilded Gold palette. Here is what Gilded Gold looks like. Gilded Gold has two of my favorite shimmer shades ever. So it has Flicker and Starlit. And just because of Flicker and Starlit, I do not want to give this palette away. I don't. Those are the prettiest glitter shades I have ever pressed eyeshadow glitter shades that I have ever come across. I don't know if you can see it, if it's coming off on camera. I'm going to keep it for that reason. The Colorpop All I See Is Magic palette. Here is what that looks like. I like this palette. I really like this palette. Like, you can get some really pretty looks out of this palette. The metallics are pretty. The matte shades blend very, very beautifully. But I'm not a big Colorpop. What? Colorpop? I'm not a big Colorpop eyeshadow fan. I'm not a big Colorpop fan, period. But I like this palette. I'm gonna keep it. Face Candy Amazonia palette. I don't like this palette. I tried to. I've used it quite a bit. As you can see, it's pretty dirty. And I just don't like it. It's just, the palette is just all over the place. And I said that when I did my first initial review, and that just has not changed. It's just all over the place. It's very intimidating. And not to mention, the colors just don't blend well together. So I'm going to pass it along. It's the Lancie Tender Night palette. Here's what that palette looks like. It's a pretty palette. I've used it and I like it. I really like it, and I want to keep playing around with it because it has a bunch of dual chrome shades in here, metallic shades that I have not used. I wish it was a few more matte shades, a few more matte transition shades. This palette will be everything. Compare it with another palette. Get those shades. That's Cocoa Bear to them, and Cocoa Bear needs to be a tad bit darker, or another variation of Cocoa Bear, like a darker shade. I'm gonna keep it because I do have another Cocoa Bear and I could just use that with it. So I'm keeping this palette. The Jacobin Ellie palette and the Bear palette. I already told you that I love these palettes. They're amazing. The creators did a really good job on this palette. Hidden Gems palette, and it is just absolutely gorgeous as well. So I will be keeping both of these palettes. So the Smashbox Double Exposure palette. That is what it looks like on the inside. honestly wanted to love this palette. I've had this palette for forever. I might have used it maybe 2 times. I just didn't really like the formula of the palette. I didn't like, wasn't exactly what I expected. I expected it to be a little bit more pigmented than what it was. I just know I'm not going to use it. I haven't used it in all this time that I had it. I just know I'm not going to use it, so I'm going to give this away. This is Makeup Forever dual palette. It's a customizable palette. I've had this for forever as well. I really like these colors. Like that berry color is very pigmented. So is the purple. It's just really pretty and really pigmented. I've used it quite a few times. I don't know the names of the shades that are in there. I don't want to try to pop them out because I'm nervous. I'm going to gash it with my nails. I'm going to take these with me. So this is my first drawer of palettes that I am keeping. Make sure you stay tuned. I have 2 more videos coming. Another video of affordable palettes and drugstore palettes. So I think I'm going to do my drugstore palettes next and then move on again to affordable palettes. This was a mixture of affordable and high-end palettes. I've gotten rid of quite a few. Felt that I did a very good job decluttering my palettes today. So I will see you guys in the next video.